Hello, everyone. We're here for the Game Insiders show. This is number six, if I'm not
Seven. Number seven.
Seven. Sorry, Justin.
Yeah.
So I'm here with Justin and with Austin that is invited today. I'll be the host this time, and we're going to talk about the game that Austin is working on, which is called Bobo Bay, inspired by Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 with the Chao Garden, which I am a huge fan of. I've actually tried to do something similar myself, and I can say it was very challenging. So I'm very curious about the journey that Austin had making this game, and we're going to ask him a few questions. So first of all, Austin, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Austin. I've been doing game dev for about 9 years now. I've released a couple like smaller projects, but this is the first, I would say, like true big one that I'm going to legit like put out for money because everything else has been free. I've been trying to do it for 9 years, but this is the first one that I felt had the most potential, and it's been doing pretty well online. So, but I don't know. I guess I kind of started my game dev stuff in 3D art mainly, and then I transitioned into coding because I just really wanted to make games, and I've always kind of made stuff either just myself or with like one partner.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, that's really nice. And this journey of going from 3D to coding, when did it happen? Did it happen early on or a bit later?
Yeah, so in college, I went to college for like film, like editing, and I just wanted to do something with media, and I hated it freshman year. It just was not my thing to be on set at all. So I just transitioned hard to games because my college had a games program, and I just kind of did everything. I started doing 2D art, 3D art writing, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think when I first started coding, I just really did not like it. I just didn't get it, and I don't know, it didn't click. And I think it was because I was doing tutorials. That's all I was doing, and so I just did 3D art for probably it's mainly that for I don't know 6 to 8 months, and then I just decided to start my own small project, just winging it, like not tutorial, like let's just go into Unity and like just try something. And that's when I fell in love with like I don't know. I wasn't a fan of these tutorials because I wasn't making something of my own. So I think me just trying it like really made me start getting into what the potential is with coding and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts. Whenever you have an idea and you start doing things yourself, it's really the moment that you have this knowledge that comes in. Because tutorials, you start them up and you're just following rules or following steps, and sometimes it doesn't work for everyone, right? Some people just it doesn't click. Some people they try it and they try a ton of tutorials, but they don't learn anything because they're not actually applying this knowledge that they're acquiring. So making your own little projects, I think, is the best way to start. And this is where you actually find whether you actually like game development, I think, because there's a lot of struggle, right? It's not simple making games.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was starting off, I made like a little skeet shooting game, like you just like on a phone, like you just click to destroy a clay pigeon or whatever in the air. And I modeled the little thing, and then I literally just like looked up on Google like how to make something fly in Unity, and then that didn't really bring anything what I wanted, but then I learned the terms of like, oh, okay, like add force to something, and it's just little by little, but then it's like it's kind of hard in the first couple, I don't know, hours or days, but then like I don't know, the ball started getting rolling, and then I just kind of went from there.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's where it starts for most people that are autodidact that learn by themselves. I think that's how it starts. And so how did it come for Bobo Bay? Like where did it start? I'm assuming you were a huge fan of Sonic, and then this is an idea that you had for a long time, or was it recent? How did it go?
I'd say it's more recent than I never played. Maybe if anybody's in the Discord, they might be shocked, but I never played Chao Garden as a kid ever.
Oh wow, I am shocked.
It was in college. I found there's people that played it like in the design lab or whatever we had, and I remember just seeing it. I didn't know it was Sonic. I just saw this. And I don't know, something about the idea. I just really get attached to these weird little ideas, and the idea of like training a little guy to like compete in a race is just like was so fascinating to me. And it was right at the start. It was probably one of the first things I thought of game dev related. And it wasn't a game idea at that point. It was just like, that's super interesting. I never seen that before. And I just kind of got obsessed with like looking into it and like looking at the wiki and just how in depth it got. Like that was the part of it that was like so cool to me. It just like this small little mini game of this bigger Sonic franchise, and it's like so in depth, or like it seemingly it has depth. And I don't know, I think only a couple of years ago, so that was whatever 9-10 years ago, but probably 2 or 3 years ago, I was just thinking of what to do next. Me and my partner for New Future Kids, he does other projects right now, but we were just kind of pitching ideas back and forth, and I was like, something with Chao Garden, and we came up with the name Bobo within the first minute of talking about it, and a lot of the ideas that are in the game were within the first like 10 minutes of talking about it. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was about I think two and a half years ago.
So I want a quick question for somebody. I'm coming from the other end of Santiago, where I have had no idea about Chao Garden before I saw Bobo Bay, and I'm sure some of the viewers of the show also don't necessarily know Chao Garden. Can you give kind of a quick overview on what it is and what Bobo Bay is all about?
Yeah, so I mean they're very similar. So Chao Garden was just a side like mini game almost part of Sonic Adventure, and it was kind of like you do things in the platforming levels to then gain stuff to use on your Chao in the Chao Garden. Okay. And that was kind of how the loop worked. And a lot of people say, and they've said for years, because Sega's not really done anything with it, that like it would never work on its own. But I always felt like that wasn't true. Like one of my favorite games ever as a kid was Nintendogs, and that's just the pet sim. There's nothing else. There's no platforming. So I really wanted to take something that was just that and really just expand upon it, not do just Chao Garden, but like let's just take this core idea. No one's really done this before after this, and then just like think of any idea I could think of and put it in that makes sense. So like for Bobo Bay at least, some of the big like differences are like this calendar system that I'm pretty proud of, and it's basically like the whole world runs on a calendar, kind of like Stardew Valley or a lot of games have calendars, but every like competition you do is on a set day. So like if you're competing today, that competition you're doing might not be available tomorrow. So it's kind of like those types of features I've added in to kind of give more bulk to that core experience, so you don't miss kind of the platforming part of it.
Right. Okay. So Santiago, go ahead. I'm going to start Austin's first devlog of Bobo Bay, so that we can have something in the background showing it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I think the similarities show quite a bit. For those that don't really know about the Chao Garden, essentially it's a pet sim with these little creatures. You give them power-ups, or not really power-ups, but little jauge of powers, and you have different attributes. So there's power, there's speed, there's swimming. You give those things to those creatures, and depending on how much you give them in a certain direction, they change their form, they morph into different shapes. And what's really interesting is those ships are kind of, if your Chao is more about swimming, then they'll have attributes that physically change on the Chao to show that they can swim better. If you give them more flying ability, then their wings are going to grow bigger and bigger. And there's all this customizability of you're nurturing those little creatures, and they're becoming more and more what they're supposed to be, let's say. And I think this is quite fascinating because there's so much replayability in those types of games, because you can take your Chao in any direction, really. And then you have all this thing where your Chaos, they can fall in love, they can make babies, and then you have a new one and you start over, and there's this whole loop that goes on. And then they die at some point. You're very sad, but that's the way of life. And what I really love about Bobo Bay is that they're actually taking this to the next level. I feel like so much stuff can be done with an idea like that, and from what I've seen from a devlog, it really seems that with the calendar, with also certain new attributes, certain new what they're called states of your shell, whether they're sad or whether they're limping because they're injured, etc. So many things that can be done, and I'm very excited about Bobo Bay. So in terms of Opsive, you've been using the behavior designer for controlling all those little creatures, and our question would be like how intensively are you using behavior designer? Are you using it just to control the shell? Are you using it to control other things? How do you do it? Whether it's different inside the garden and in mini games, etc.
Yeah, so right now I kind of, when I started prototyping it, and honestly for a longer time than I should have, it was basically like all hard coded, like all the stuff they do in the garden. And it was mainly just because in the beginning I just wanted them to walk around, and I was focusing on other stuff like the races. But then once I got closer to wanting people to play it, I felt like, okay, there needs to be something in the garden, and I have a lot of ideas of making the garden more interesting, of just doing things in there, like with your Bobos and stuff. And just all the ideas I came up with, there's just like a huge list, and I haven't gotten them, most of them yet. But there's so much. I'm like, I need something. I can't just like code individually. And the first try I just did like a state machine, because it's how I do. I use states for the race. So like how when they race, they're in states of like walking, swimming, climbing, jumping, and that makes sense for that because that's kind of how it works. And there's expansions upon that in races, but for the most part, it stays those core things. But for the garden, yeah, there's all this different stuff they had to do. Like I wanted them interacting with each other and feeling like you can do stuff and they react to it. So like something I just added recently is like Bobos will like wave at you if you pass by sometimes, and then like Parfait, the main character, like wave back at them. So something that I decided to do was basically just look into behavior trees. I didn't really know much about them, to be honest. Like I've heard of them, I never really looked into them. And my like mentality for stuff with game dev is like my passion isn't in like coding. My passion isn't like making games. So I will buy an asset if it seems good and it's going to save time. And that was something that I really needed some sort of visual to help myself, because you could do a behavior tree through code, but like there's no way my brain was going to wrap around how expansive that was going to be and like how to piece that together. So I wanted some sort of visual and tree. And behavior design is obviously just like pretty well reviewed and has been around for a bit. So I bought it, and most of the nodes, I don't think I use any nodes that are like they're all custom, because it's like they're all the custom scripts I put in there for actions and things. And yeah, it works for everything. So it's them just wandering around. They sit down. If you throw a soccer ball near them, that's how they go near the soccer ball and go kick it. They go up to other Bobos and talk to them. Yeah, and like giving them snacks and stuff. It is handled through that, just so I can override. So that was the big thing with the tree. I didn't really realize when I started, but it allows me to basically have like a. I relate my game to RimWorld a lot, which is funny because it's nothing like RimWorld, but a piece of it is like the different, nodes. If you have a sequence or a selector or whatever, there's priority over it. So whatever's first happens before, like after that. And that just helps with like, okay, I'm picking up a Bobo. They can't talk to a friend now because they're picked up, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I think behavior designers, behavior trees in general, are extremely powerful for that regard compared to state machines. And then of course you can take it a step forward, by kind of combining both. But then I think in terms of your game, behavior trees just make more sense than state machines, at least for the garden part. And it's great. I think it's a great use of it. I'm curious about how random those interactions are for the Chaos. Does it all depend on the seed that that the the Bobos have with the different attributes, and depending on the attributes, they have different priorities or different things that they do. How do you make the choices of what happens when?
Yeah, so that's like a big thing that my favorite parts of games, like the little weird details like that. So yeah, the Bobos have like emotions and moods that they're in. So like if, like I said, like a Bobo can wave at the player if they pass by, and it's random. There's like a random chance, like a 60% chance or whatever. If they're close by, they'll wave to them. But then, along with that chance is like, if they're angry or sad, they won't wave at you. So there's like pieces of that, and then also there's this trait system, which is the RimWorld comparison again, that each Bobo is kind of acts in a different way, and just a little bit. So you have even down to the small things of like your Bobo can sit down and just chill, and like how often they sit is different for each Bobo, and it's like set at birth. So there's these random chances, but also yeah, like there's numbers for everything. I just anything that I think could be interesting has some sort of number to it.
How do you store all that? Do you use scriptable objects, or what? Yeah, what do you have a database, internal database, or what do you do for that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I just have like a main Bobo class that just stores everything related to. It's insanely long, and it's maybe probably not even how you're supposed to do it, but it works for me. It's just me. It's just me programming a project. So if I understand it, that's what matters.
Right.
But yeah, it's one Bobo class, and anything that is related, like their colors, their traits, their like they have a voice pitch, like how high or low their voice is, like everything is in there, and it's a lot of it is just like a 0 to 1 or a -1 to 1 value, and that just base everything off that. Obviously, there's other like colors aren't, but so much of it is just these little small things, like how much they can eat every day. So you either have a Bobo that can eat twice a day or 3 times a day, but if they're anxious, they only eat once.
Okay. Are you using the, so let me show the, Austin sent the screenshot of his behavior tree. We weren't able to get screen sharing on his desktop working, so this is what we're working with, but I think it shows a kind of a good overview of what the tree looks like right now. Are you using the utility selector at all? Have you heard of the utility selector?
I don't know. Remind me what it is.
Utility selector, so utility theory is another kind of tree graph type where it's popular. It's used by games like The Sims, where you have different emotions or traits that kind of change. Your hunger changes, your tiredness changes, whatever, and it will kind of dynamically select a utility value based off of these different traits. So over time, you get hungrier and hungrier. Well, eventually, your hunger is going to override whatever you're currently doing, like working or whatever. And so then it will switch to grabbing a sandwich, for example. And so the utility selector, the decorator, yeah, it's a decorator. I think it may be a composite, but one of those two, it will. Now I feel really bad that I don't even know what type of class it is, but it will allow you to kind of dynamically select which child branch should run. And some of the things that you're describing, I think, would make for a perfect use case of this utility selector.
No, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely look into it. I didn't.
Okay.
I guess,
okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll honestly, like a lot of the stuff, usually when I use an asset, like I use the core of it, and even if I shouldn't, I like build on it myself. But I'll definitely look into that because I'm not doing anything like right now that does that sort of overriding, but I do want to in the future. So I'll definitely look into that.
Nice. And would you mind going through the tree and explaining slightly what are all the main branches at least?
Yeah, so I actually can't. I'm looking at the YouTube because I can't see it on Skype for
some
reason. But I will. I'm gonna just pull up the screenshot I sent so I can have a reference.
Yeah.
So just I won't be able to point to anything, but vaguely, everything on the left, like the big left side, is all the stuff that the player is doing directly to the Bobo. So obviously you can't read because it's a big image, and you can't. It's pretty blurry if you zoom in. But most of that left side is stuff like picking them up, giving them an item. So the big kind of chunk on that left side that's lower is all the items, like giving them an accessory, a masher, which is how they mash together like or breed, and then feeding them, giving them a soccer ball or whatever. That's all that chunk. And then there's stuff like you tell them to follow you, and if they're following you, then they are basically walking towards you. And that's like the left side is kind of just dedicated to like interruptions, almost just like stuff that yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to kind of explain it, is just interrupting. And it's on the right side that gets into the more just stuff they do on their own. So you'll kind of see the little wait period. They kind of wait a little bit, and then they always decide something to do. So it's either wander, so that's the first one I ever added. They just pick a distance around themselves and then just walk to it. It's a pretty simple, like, how it works. And then the sitting is just, sitting down, they do an animation, they turns off their like nav mesh type thing, and then they don't walk around at all. And that has a chance too. So like, there's a chance of it, but then also if your Bobo is in the lazy mood, they're more often to take a seat. So it's just like small little things like that. You might never even notice, but I love that kind of stuff. That's just like really like specific. And then yeah, it gets into things like approaching a friend. So you basically like they search around them in a distance around them, and then they see if there's a Bobo that's not doing anything, and then they'll run up to them and they'll wave to them. And that's like the initiation. And then if you get waved to by a Bobo, there's a tree a little bit back that handles that. I have to actually redo that pretty soon because I didn't do it well, but that's like a whole system. But yeah, everything on the right. And then a big thing that I'm doing, and why I think behavior designer has been pretty good for me, is because it was pretty easy to set up, if I remember correctly, to like set up adding nodes at runtime. So you can't see any because this is a runtime view of it, but that way right, I have it's like referencing another behavior tree. And basically depending on your trait, there's 3 slots for a Bobo to add in a new node to this. Like this whole right side is they're bored, or like they have nothing to do, which is basically just they're not being interacted with. So it does all those things. So it might sit, they might wander, and then depending on their trait. So a trait example is the forager. They dig around in the dirt, and then they pop up a snack. So it's a way that like it's a fun trait. It's pretty rare to get, but it allows the player to get new snacks to feed their Bobos for free because they just find them in the garden. And every Bobo does not have that ability, but I needed some of these Bobos to have that trait to be able to have that as one of their options when they're looking for something to do. So randomly every day, once, because you can't just endlessly make snacks. It's basically just once a day they'll find one. But it adds this other behavior tree add-on at runtime that it can run through. And you have 3 slots. I might do more, but I think I only need 3. So because you can stack traits too. So it adds this other thing that like these different Bobos can have different behavior trees, really, just because they can find stuff to do that other ones can't.
That is really cool. I really like that idea. Are there things where you can actually unlock certain things that they can do when they're bored? Because I know, for example, in the Chao Garden, once you do the competitions and you win certain of the competitions, you can get some items like a TV or some baby or some music or whatever. And sometimes if you get like 3 Chaos that win the race, they can all play together some music. And I thought that was just absolutely genius. Is that things that you plan on adding?
Yeah, so there's 2 types of things. There's toys, which the soccer ball is technically a toy that you can toss around at them. And there's no soccer ball in the garden, no one plays with it. But when you get one, right now it's just in the game by default, but it will be like a purchasable. And now they'll do something and you'll see Bobo's like running around a soccer ball at the same time. But yeah, I'm planning on adding like a TV to the garden, so they like sit down and watch TV. So that'll be stuff that like once it's in the garden, they'll go up to and approach it at that point. And then there are toys or the equivalent. Like I'm still trying to decide if I want to do legit toys or just keep them as item traits. But there is a way, like a big one that kind of blows up on Twitter whenever I post it is you can give a Bobo a steel chair and they drop kick other Bobos in races. So it gives them this rough and tumble trait. So like you give items and they can do new things. So one of them that's similar to the forager I just talked about is a shovel. And they do a similar thing. They dig in the garden, but they find treasure. So that's like to make money. So that is another behavior tree node that gets added on. So just depending on what item they have, it opens up another possibility of what they could possibly do with it. And then like music, like the instrument stuff, I definitely want to add. I haven't done it yet, but that is on the list to do a similar thing, have them play together and stuff.
So here there's a question on YouTube that says, will the Bobo have a chart for evolution stages and such?
Yeah, if I understand the question correctly, because I saw that, the chart. I mean, yeah, so a big part, I kind of go through in the devlog, so if anybody wants to like take a look at it, obviously watch it, because I think it does a pretty good job of explaining the entire thing. And I kind of listed out a couple of core things for myself when I started making the game of like, what is the core Chao Garden experience? What do I need to make first? And then I could build on top of that. And I kind of focused the first year and a half of development on just that. Like, I know people are going to be disappointed if they don't have this. And I listed out like 7 things. And one of them was like, one, like customization, and then the evolution stuff and breeding. And there's a bunch of stuff, but to answer the question, so in Chao, you had something called alignments. So normal Chao is just like normal, and then you had hero and dark, and then there's also chaos is another thing. But hero and dark, and depending on the character you're playing as, you could influence them one way. My game, I wanted to do a little bit more. So there's species, and there's 5 of them instead of just the 3, and so all the species have different looks and different patterns, colors, and then like let's say that this default species doesn't have red as a color, like any shade of red. But then if you find a phantom Bobo, which is my like dark equivalent in Bobo Bay, you can then breed them together and then get a normal Bobo that has that red color because they're mashed together. So that all stuff is added and that's all done. And then we have basically the same thing I kind of mentioned earlier, which depending on their stats as they progress in their life, they will change their visuals and look. So just small things like if they're good in swim, they'll get like little fins out their side. It's different for every form. So basically it's like my game has 8 stats versus the I guess 4 or 5 in Chao. And all 8 of those stats influence the form they turn into. So at their like baby to adulthood, they shift into one of 5 forms, and each species has 5 forms. So there's a lot, and then those base 5 forms will all branch into every one of those has multiple looks to them based on what stats you put in.
And how do you deal with that? Is it all blend shapes, or do you have bones that's also do the formation? How do you?
Yeah, so the species are just completely different mesh sets. They all use the same texture for their patterns, but it's a new mesh. So like you'll see them in here. Like there's like a mushroom one that's like a completely different head. There's a bunch of different looks, but then for the transitioning through lifetime, that's all blend shapes. So stuff even like horns, like new horns popping out is just like a really small horn scaled down inside their head, but then it'll grow up as they get older.
So that means that you have all the blend shapes possible for every trait for every single race of Chao.
Yes.
Or Bobo, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. That's a huge amount of work, I can imagine, but it's really cool. I can already see like when combining stuff, you can make some really interesting shapes.
Yeah, I've people been playtesting for the past couple weeks, and they're testing the demo. The demo is only 1 month of the game, but I'm excited for people to actually test like the full game because they don't you don't get to see them turn into anything in that month. But once people start playing the full thing, yeah, you can see them kind of fully change because they get a third color too. There's a bunch of stuff that can happen as they get older.
Nice. So that's really cool. I'm really excited about this game. Justin, do you have any more questions for Austin?
Well, one comment is just the testing must be a nightmare with the number of comments, everything that you can have. Oh, looks like my camera cut off. I guess my camera has a delay of an hour, and then it'll cut off to it. Okay, so I'll switch to I'm on my laptop camera now. But yeah, so the amount of testing that you have, that just seems insane. How do you test all that?
Just brute force it. I mean, luckily, a lot of the bugs aren't even related to that stuff, so maybe I just did it well. But there hasn't been really anything, because I just think the system I made, I really spent a lot of time making sure, because I knew this would be a pain if it was made poorly. I made it in the beginning with all that stuff in mind, like the different species, all of that. So like it's one material and shader for every single Bobo in the game. They all use like all the colors, and they have like they're sparkly, they're metal. It's all one material. I just like set it all up so I knew it'd be easy to debug. Then also, yeah, like I'd be able to add new stuff without breaking other things in the future. But most of the bugs I found aren't even related to that stuff. It's just like normal stupid things, like a Bobo is floating in the air.
Right. Okay. Then question related to Behavior Designer. So I'm currently working on a new version of Behavior Designer. What feature do you most want in it that version 1 does not have?
Oh, wow. Put me on the spot. I don't know.
Yeah, you weren't ready for this question. Hey, if you don't have anything, that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think honestly, I don't have anything. Maybe I could think about it for longer, but right now, there's nothing that I've run into that is like ruining anything or like makes it super hard. It's honestly the most difficulty I have with Behavior Designer is not with Designer, it's with behavior trees. It's just I'm still learning it and still learning because you mess something like because the whole benefit of it is that you don't need to worry about transitions between things like you do, but unlike a state machine where you have to manually set up transitions. So there's stuff that happens all the time of like there's still a bug in the game that I have to figure out that I'm guessing has to do with the behavior tree of like you're holding a Bobo in your hand and then a Bobo will walk up to them and wave at them and they'll rotate in your hand to talk to them. Like that's not supposed to happen, but it does every once in a while. So it's like stuff like that. So I don't think I've ever ran into anything with Designer itself that like I've desired. I don't think so.
Okay, good. I'm happy for that answer.
That's good.
Yeah. So no. So when do you expect Bobo Bay to be released?
Oh, who knows? Like I said, I'm putting out a demo. I mean, very soon. I'm looking no later than the end of the month of July, but then, yeah, full game. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard. I've been saying like end of next year, but who knows if that'll happen. But a lot of the core is made. It's a lot of art. There's still other features to make, but so much of it is art. I have to just make a ton of accessories, all the different species, the different competition maps. So it just depends on how long that takes me to do all the art for it.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm impressed that you're doing both art and coding because I would never be able to do the art side of things.
Yeah.
So it's two different brains working together, two different sides of the brains working together.
Yeah, I think it helped that I kind of started with art maybe because I wasn't even thinking, and because nowadays I do more coding than I do art when I have to for a game, but I don't do it for like fun.
Right. Yeah. So no, I think and well, for anybody who's interested in Bobo Bay, we have a link in the description of this YouTube to your Steam page. Is there? You have a YouTube video, or I'm looking at it, and YouTube just continues on. I'm not sharing the screen right now, but so you have a YouTube channel that I'll also link to. Is there any other good locations?
I think that my Twitter is probably the best, or X or whatever. It's _ Osto. It's probably it blew up a bit recently, so that's kind of where I post the most now.
Okay. So I'll include a link to your Twitter in the description of this video. But besides that, I'm not as much of a Chao Garden fan as Santiago, but I'm impressed with the number of combinations and just the sheer scope of this by what you're encountering. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot for one developer. It's a lot. All the art, all the different possibilities. Like, it feels like even for the Chao Garden, I've played hours, maybe hundreds, maybe even more, and I never actually finished anything. Like, there's no way to go through all the possibilities. It's impossible.
And that's kind
to
of
be able to actually develop the thing. It's awesome.
The good thing I've been seeing recently that's been a boost to my motivation and confidence in it is like these testers that are playing it. Like, I thought I'd put out this demo. It takes about 5 hours if you just like ran through it to get through 1 month. And I expected people to play 3 to 5 hours and put it down, but people have been putting like 40 plus hours into this.
Oh, wow.
Just restarting it, doing it again, and that's been a big boost to like my confidence in it, because I just did not expect, for how little content there is, for people to put that much time into it is like, all right, I think it's a good sign.
It absolutely is, yeah. And we didn't even talk about the competitions, but you have racing. Do you have other types of competition in the game?
Yeah, so racing is only one right now. I've always waited. I was going to wait till after the demo to do fighting, just because I didn't feel like I need that for the demo, but fighting is going to be in. I have a couple of fun ideas for how that'll work. And then I have other few ideas. Nothing is confirmed, just because honestly, racing and fighting they're the most fun to watch, because the whole point of it is it needs to be fun to spectate, because you're not doing anything. Yeah. And I have a couple of ideas, but I haven't. Yeah, like I said, I prototyped a few that I didn't really feel like good enough to put in. But I have a couple, and there's going to be like holidays in the game, so similar to like a Stardew type thing. So based on the calendar system, there's holidays, and those holidays will have like other events that your Bobos can participate in, and those will just be like once a year. So it doesn't matter as much if they're not super entertaining, like racing and fighting, but they'll happen once or twice a year or something. So yeah, it's a maybe for other things than racing and fighting. It just depends on if I feel like it's fun enough to watch after I prototype it.
Well, I'm definitely very excited about this game, and I haven't played the demo yet, but I might do it very soon, as soon as I got time.
Was that out yet? It comes out in a few weeks.
It comes out in a few weeks. Perfect. Right during the holidays. In that case, I think we can wrap it up. Justin will show some stuff about Behavior Designer too. Justin, if you want to stay to have a look, feel free, and if not, we'll say goodbye for now.
Yeah, I'll stay. I'll take a look.
Okay. Perfect. Go ahead, Justin.
All right. Thank you, Santiago. Let me go ahead and share the screen again. So I was on vacation for about a week before this, so I didn't make as much progress as I have in the past, but I do have one hotly requested feature that in here. So let me go ahead and show this. So let's see. Yeah, my screen has been shown now. So I have Behavior Designer up. And one of the complaints that we got about version 1 is that when you're refactoring, it's a pain to change the task names. Like if I change the class name from my task to my task 2, it's going to pop up with an unknown task and you have to manually replace it, or you can go into the JSON file and do a text editor of find and replace. Well, now we have this moved from, Unity has a moved from attribute. And with that attribute, I tried initially using it, but a lot of the data associated with it is internal, and I didn't want to have to use reflection just for this little attribute. So I'm using the formally serialized attribute. So now in this tree, I have two different tasks. I have task B right here, and then I have task B node. These are two different classes right here. And let's say that I want to now change it to task A. So I will do just a rename, and then I'm going to use the formally serialized as attribute, and I'm going to make sure everything is typed correctly. So now when I reload the tree, it should all magically work. I'm hoping. As soon as Unity reloads and I click on the game object again. The excitement, the anticipation. And let's see, it was on main camera. We should see two tasks A instead of some unknown task. And there we go, it worked.
Good job, Justin.
Thank you. And so this feature uses the serialization system that the character controller uses and inventory uses as well. So it will be available in all of our different assets as well. So that part will be nice. Besides that, I've just been kind of working on unit tests and stuff like that, so I don't have anything else major to show.
Yeah, but this is quite major. I think for anyone that uses their own codes and try to expand on our stuff, every time you wanted to change the namespace, you had this problem where you had to manually fix all the references, and this is huge. It really helps and saves a ton of time.
Yeah, I probably should have done this a long time ago, because literally it was like a 10-line change, but well, it's in now. Yeah,
you're improving the tools every time.
Right. So yeah, that was pretty much the only thing that I have to show on this one. We do have another show scheduled in a couple weeks, but I don't have it posted yet. But I'll have more behavior designer updates in that. So, Austin, if you have any major feature requests, let me know for behavior designer 2. But if behavior designer 1 was perfect, behavior designer 2 is going to be even better.
Awesome. I will do.
So yeah, okay. All right. Well, yeah, that was all that I had then.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Justin, for joining us. It was a pleasure. And maybe once Bobo Bay releases, then we can have another chat, or even before that, if you have any really interesting things to say about behavior designer or any other thing. Yeah. So definitely we'll have you back. And until then that's it. That's a wrap for this show.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. And we're no longer live. Okay.